Hello, everyone. Yes, this is a different type of video. For me, it's very much at the core of my channel, this particular issue, because partially what got me into the Reborn community was I'm not going to go into exactly what the situation was surrounding me entering into this community. I've talked about it in passing, but the full story is not my story to tell. But just know that it is absolutely related to this topic that has unfortunately come up in society, specifically American society. I cannot. It's almost where like I can't believe this is happening to America, but also I really can't. I can believe this is happening because it's been leading up to this kind of thing. And what I am talking about today is absolutely abortion. Now, I am making a point to post this video on my Reborn account, my Reborn YouTube, because upsettingly, a lot of people in the Reborn community seem to be pro, pro life. And I want to make it abundantly clear that I think that is a piece of crap. And I mean, I don't want to insult people's intelligence. So I have some points pulled up that I want to talk about of why I feel the way that I do. And maybe you should start thinking a bit differently after the things that I say. So if this helps anybody understand why people choose this as an option, because it should be an option regardless, I would love to. I'm going to share these with you just in case one person changes their mind. Has always been my reason for making topic videos about more difficult things. If I can change the mind of just one person, that would be great. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about it now and explain what's going on. So, those who are not in the US or for some reason are living in a place where you're not getting this information, the US has determined that it's fine to overturn Roe versus Wade, which is what made um, it legal to get an abortion federally, meaning in all of the US. And now since they've overturned it, they have made it so that it's a state by state basis. So individual states determine the laws surrounding abortion. This is a really big issue. It's horrifying that this is happening, and I'm going to explain why. So, but the core of the issue that I want to talk about, these are my first points about this, is one, it's none of the government's business what women or people with uteruses, whatever politically you want to say here, people who are able to give birth, it's none of the government's business if they choose to reproduce and how they choose to reproduce. It should never be. It's a huge overstep into what should be allowed by the government. It's none of their business. It's none of anyone's business. If you don't like the idea of an abortion, then don't get an abortion. That's why it should be a choice. You don't like the idea, don't do it. Not everyone has the same ideas of what is moral as far as if this is considered murder or not. And there's no correct, quite answer. But I mean, I have my opinion of which of why I'm going to share of why I think it's not murder. But if you think it is, then don't do it. I mean, it really is quite honestly that simple. And secondly, in the US, one of the founding principles of our nation is supposed to be the separation of church and state, meaning separating out religion from laws that govern the US. Now, this is not a reality, obviously, because this has happened based on religious outrage, and that's how this has been able to happen. So clearly, the separation of the whole church and state thing isn't a reality. But it should be because not everyone follows the same religion, like I said, or some people just don't follow any religion. Like, I mean, come on. And then, additionally, that goes along with this is the idea that of freedom of religion. You should be freely able to choose what you believe. I don't think that's an insane thing to want in a society, that you should be able to choose within reason what you believe, as long as it doesn't affect anyone else, which, abortion doesn't. It only affects the person really getting the abortion. This video might get flagged. I have no idea. I know I won't be able to monetize it because of this topic, which is fine with me. It's not about monetization. So now that I've gotten to why the core reasons why this is kind of like ridiculous to even have happened in the first place, I'm going to get into some of the counter arguments of people who are pro-life, because they are so much misinformation, and they're so ill-informed, and they're such non-arguments that I want to talk about them and just kind of eliminate all of them. So the first one is it murder? Is abortion murder? And no, it's not, because first of all, they're not alive. If they were already alive, then we wouldn't be calling this birth. A fetus, when it comes out, like a baby is not 9 months old when it comes out. That would be ridiculous to say. So that life has not yet begun in the first place. So, but let's disregard that. Say that they are living. Let's say they are living. A lot of people who happen to be pro-choice, pro-life, are also for IVF, are okay with lethal injection, and by that I mean okay with the death penalty, and are okay with pulling the plug on family members who are brain dead. There's no consistency in what you think is murder, and I'm speaking specifically to people who believe this way. There's no consistency in what you're counting as murder, it seems like. This is not murder. Taking someone who's living, born, taking their life is murder, even if it's done by the state or done by the prison justice system, as is the case with lethal injection. How is that okay, but abortion's not? And as far as IVF, specifically, people are fine with the idea of getting rid or discarding fertilized eggs. So clearly, this whole argument that life starts at conception or life starts at fertilization is complete bull, because there will be more outrage about throwing away of fertilized embryos that have not been yet implanted. So what I want is, be consistent. If you're going to say abortion is murder, you better be protesting about all of these that I've mentioned just as hard. And let's talk about the whole idea that the heartbeat means that someone's alive or something is alive. No, it absolutely doesn't. Because of, like I said, if that were the case, then all of these things would be murder. The states, the prison system would be murderers, which they are for other reasons, but that's unrelated to this video. You doing a merciful thing by putting your family member out of their misery because they're brain dead, you would be murdering them. Really, if you want to put it down to a heartbeat, because brain dead people still have heartbeats, but they're not alive. So clearly, a heartbeat shouldn't be enough to determine what is life. Lots of things have heartbeats that are not alive. And speaking of the heart in a fetus up to a certain point in development is not even a heart. It's just pumping blood. It's not the 4-chamber thing, developed thing that we living creatures have outside of the womb. It's not that. It's not even developed to that point where it's recognizable as a heart. So clear that misconception up when there people are, saying it's a heartbeat, it's alive. It's not even a heartbeat. in the first place? And then what about the morality of it? Killing is wrong, ending something is wrong. What about the fetus's right to live, right? We hear that all the time with the counter arguments of the people who are pro-life. What about the person that is existing, living, who has to make this decision? What about their life? What about their suffering? What about what happens after birth? What about the mother who is sacrificing a lot, making irreversible changes to their body, um, risking a life of having to care for something that they might not be in a position to care for? What about them? What about the environment? What happens next now that a lot of states are making abortions illegal? What happens to the environment when we get overpopulated? We're already struggling for places to live, making things affordable. What happens then? Why are we so willing to risk a potential life, or for like an existing life? I said that backwards. We're risking an existing life for the potential, because that's what it is. It's a potential of a life. You can go all the way to term, but that does not mean that person, that infant will be born living. And everyone in the reborn community is all too aware of this. A lot of people, unfortunately, have had stillborns in this community, and know that pregnancy does not equal a living child. So when we talk about suffering, what are we really talking about here? Because clearly it would cause a lot more suffering to force a child to exist in an environment that is not capable of caring for it. That is way more suffering to enforce than to never have been born in the first place. We are going to be enforcing situations where children are born to die. And I do mean that literally. There are so many fetal issues that occur in pregnancy that will make that fetus incapable to live more than a few hours, a few weeks, a few months once they are born. It is far more cruel to make a mother carry around their dead or dying fetus, to have it die in their arms. Way more cruel than to have them have an abortion. Either way, it won't be an easy choice. A lot of people will still, choose. That's the thing. This is a choice. A lot of people are strong enough or feel like they can handle that emotion of having a stillbirth. But that should be a choice, and it is cruel to enforce that you have to go through that. Not to mention, people are like, well, what about adoption? What about fostering with these unwanted children that are definitely going to occur because of this ban, this overturning of Roe versus Wade? What happens after? This is going to the after effects again. Why don't they just put them up for adoption? Clearly, these people making this part of the argument have never looked anything into our adoption system in the US. It is a hot mess of abuse and just failures of our system, neglect, you name it. People in foster care, more often than not, are still going to be abused. So that's not even an option, unless, if we're going to make this happen and continue to ban abortions, we need to think about these things that'll happen after. If you want to make this argument, make the adoption system better, maybe. And I want to also mention that what you're going to see on the internet is that abortion is cruel to the fetus. It is not. In most cases, the abortion is simply an induced labor situation. It's not ripped out of people like these videos show or claim. It doesn't happen that way. And not only that, 98.7% of abortions are done before 20 weeks, which means they're barely developed at that point. In no way viable at that point. And so, another thing that people are saying, because what overturning Roe versus Wade means is that it's returning it the right to the states to make these laws. People are saying this is not a complete ban on abortions. It's not making abortions illegal everywhere. And that's BS, because in a lot of these states, like more than half of our states, we have what are called trigger laws. So now that this is overturned, the states are already enforcing bans and making it a felony to have an abortion or to aid in an abortion. Many states like Texas are already on it. So, and a lot of states are also making it just impossible to get one, because they're saying that it's up to 6 weeks you can have an abortion. And that does not work, because if you know anything about the body, most people don't know that they are pregnant until at least 8 weeks. So how are you supposed to have that time to make the choice when you don't know that you're pregnant? Because people have irregular cycles and lack of resources to be able to even get to the abortion center. There's roadblocks such as making it literally impossible to get to these places to get that help before it becomes illegal. There's so much wrong with that idea that this isn't going to do anything, because it is actively hurting people. And my last point that I'm going to make is this common, very common argument that pro-life people make is, why don't you just use protection? Why don't you use birth control? Why don't you use a condom? Why don't you do anything other than have an abortion? First of all, nothing, and I do mean nothing, is 100% protective of like not allowing pregnancy to happen. There's no 100% contraceptive other than completely removing the organs that would make it able to get pregnant. Nothing is 100%. I mean nothing. Burning, tying tubes, vasectomies, if you don't follow up with the vasectomy, not 100% effective. Tying tubes, burning tubes, they can grow back. It happened to my mother. They can grow back together, and then boom, pregnancy. You can take all the steps necessary to prevent pregnancy, and it can still happen. It happens every day. It happens. It's not 100%. And so you're saying no one should have sex. I'm talking about people in marriages who may not want a child, so a married couple shouldn't have sex. What are you saying here? And so you're saying, okay, cool, then get a hysterectomy. Guess what? A lot of states make it almost impossible for a young woman to get a hysterectomy. A lot of places will require you to have had a child already or be a certain age to even be considered to have a hysterectomy. Did you know that? I bet a lot of people did not know that. So even if you're doing all that you can to prevent pregnancy, it happens. It happens. And so now you should suffer for the rest of your life, even though you did the right thing to try to prevent what's happening. Or you should be forced to put yourself and your body in a situation that you don't need to be in. It's cruel, if we're talking about cruelty. So you're talking about it's okay to force a 12-year-old to have a baby because she was assaulted? Because that happens. A lot of these places who have these laws already in place, now that Roe versus Wade has been overturned, They're already banning it for all circumstances, even in abuse situations, manipulation situations, all of it. Medical situations where the mother could die, it's all banned. It's all illegal in places like Texas. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. And if you are pro life and you're on my channel and you've listened to this and you've taken time to understand and you still disagree with me, hop off my channel. I support women's rights. I support everyone's rights to their body on this channel, and I will not have that kind of toxic feelings around my channel. Hop off my channel because I don't like it. And this is my space where I can share my feelings, and I don't want people who don't understand the idea of bodily autonomy to be around my space. I hope I've made myself very clear of why I feel the way I feel and why so many people who are pro-choice feel the way I feel. And yeah, be nice to each other, I guess. And hopefully this situation fixes itself through legislation. I don't think it will anytime soon, so we're just in a shit situation in the US right now, and all we can do is try to support people to get access to these abortions. And there's many funds set up, and I will be donating to one that helps people go over state lines so that even if they're in like Texas, for example, they can go somewhere else to get an abortion. So I hope you guys join with me in supporting these people who need this. All right. Have a good one, y'all.